Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. Good afternoon. I want to thank everybody for connecting in and attending the webinar today. I want to welcome everyone. I know that everybody has busy schedules, and I want to thank you for attending today. One note I'd like to start at the outset is if you stick around for the entire webinar, it's about 30 minutes in length. You'll be entered into a drawing for a suite at one of the Southern Maryland Blue Crabs baseball games. I want to introduce myself. My name is Jim Garvin, and I'm the account manager for eTrepid. If you don't know who eTrepid is, we are a MSP, or a managed service provider, that supports the SMB market, or small, medium-sized business, small, medium business market. eTrepid is unique from any other MSPs in the area, and I'd like to kind of quickly go over the reasons why. So our clients under our management have had zero data loss. We've been in business for 12 years, and nobody has ever had any data loss, any of our clients. We recently just won the Beacon Award, and that was from the St. Mary's County Chamber of Commerce. Our experience racks up among the best. We have over 125 years of experience in the field combined among all the engineers at the office. We are a 24/7, 365 live support, so we're never closed. Our support is always available by phone, chat, and the systems are monitored by a seasoned and certified IT professional. eTrepid does offer a 10-minute guarantee, so we'll have a professional seasoned technician actually working on your service request in 10 minutes or less. We guarantee that. We are engineers, we are not salespeople. So our account team is comprised of seasoned and certified IT professionals. The compensation is not based on commission, so it's all salary based. We are a local and veteran-owned small business. eTrepid was actually the first Southern Maryland IT firm to receive the CompTIA MSP Trust Mark, and that's a coveted IT industry credential across the nation. We were the first ones to actually receive that in the Southern Maryland area, so we're pretty proud of that. We are a one-stop shop. All our IT needs can be met in one place. We have the experience and capabilities to provide everything you need for a smooth IT operation. Also, we can provide on-site anywhere, so we can provide on-site service in all 50 states and Canada. I'm sure that doesn't pertain to anybody here on the webinar today, but we have that capability. We do offer $1 million guarantee for clients that are covered by our ransomware warranty, which means you can get reimbursed up to $1 million if you aren't able to keep your you safe from the attack. And then number 12, we offer a $500,000 cyber insurance that clients can qualify for the cyber data breach coverage, and that's what we're going to be discussing today. So with that, I want to introduce Justin Reimuth with Tech Data, or I'm sorry, Tech Rug. When we first started down this road, we started getting a lot of calls from clients and prospects about cyber insurance, and we started doing some research based on everything that's happening in the industry today. And we really could not find anybody that understood the ins and the outs and actually an expert in the policies. We did partner up with Tech Rug and Justin Reimuth, who has 14 years of experience and does specialize in cyber data breach insurance. We consider him an expert, and so with that, I'm introducing Justin. You can go ahead and take it away, Justin.
Okay, Jim, I appreciate the kind words, and I'll kind of follow up what you said. I know everyone's got a busy schedule. I appreciate you hopping on this webinar. I'm going to try to keep it short, sweet, and to the point, because I know even when I sit on webinars, sometimes I get a little bored after 15 or 20 minutes. I'll keep my promise and not go over. But I just want to touch upon, kind of why everybody on this call needs cyber liability insurance. What are some main insuring agreements or coverages that you need to pay attention to? and then what are some exclusions that you kind of need to be wary of. And then at the at the end of the presentation, I know that we're going to have a chat, or there's even a chat box or chat form that Lisa will be happy to throw out any questions, and I'll be more than happy to answer them. So with that being said, I'm just going to kind of go over a little bit about kind of one of the main questions that we'll get. So we work with TechRug as a whole. We've been in business for 14 years. We work a lot with the gyms of the world, the eTrepids, managed service providers, but we also work a lot with large hospitals. We work with multi-state law firms, accounting firms. We've got big manufacturing companies, food companies. So we write what they call standalone cyber insurance. So a lot of clients, when they're first calling us up from a credit union or a hospital or a law firm, they're saying, hey, do I really even need to have cyber liability insurance? Because we've partnered with eTrepid and they do all of our IT work. And so, since they have all of our information in the cloud and they manage all of our networks, I really don't see what exposure we have. And, I'm going to get to a pie chart here in a second, but any company that handles or maintains personally identifiable, which is social security numbers, driver's license, dates of birth, things like that, or protected health information, medical record numbers, beneficiary information, you have to have your own cyber liability policy. This pie chart is going to show you, we all read on or hear on the news, about Equifax or about Target or Home Depot or Ashley Madison, right? These hacks and these big companies, the losses that they sustain. But the flip side of that coin is, only 44% of the claims that the insurance industry sees comes from hacks, malware, and viruses, right? So 56% of the claims out there come from things like a rogue employee, a lost or stolen laptop, a staff mistake, a rogue employee. So you actually, if you were just to look at this, this net diligence report, and net diligence, what they do is they gather information from the various insurance companies, and then every year they put out a report. So they should be putting out the 2017 report here in the summertime. So this is the latest information we have. But you actually have a greater chance, even if you outsource all of your IT to an IT provider, you have a better chance of turning in a cyber claim than they do. So I think a lot of people find that interesting. Some other things that I just want to point out was in the first half of 2017, again, we don't have all of 2017 in yet, but there were more data breach and data leaks and thefts than in all of 2016. So this problem is getting worse and worse. It's not getting better and better. We've really seen, last year was considered 2017 the year of, cyber extortion, right? So what that means is, the bad guys, right, are coming in, they're getting into your network, and then they're encrypting all your data and paralyzing the business so that you can't operate. And in order to get the keys to uncrypt that data, they're asking for, $10, $15, $20,000. So it's like a kidnap and ransom type thing, right? So we're seeing more and more of that happening. We're also, and I'll get into it, seeing a lot more social engineering going on, where you're getting tricked into sending money to a third party, thinking that it's legit. And that could be because of emails are getting hacked, right? Or it could be that there's one digit off, right? So instead of an I, it looks like a T. So again, at TechRug, we're turning in more and more of these claims. We actually, I just read an article a couple weeks ago that talked about, in the last 30 years, what the insurance industry has paid out in property and casualty claims for like wind and fire and vandalism and things like that. They're actually going to pay out that same amount of money in the next 10 years. So in a third of the time, they're going to pay out the same amount of money, which is staggering. But 60% of the companies that suffer some sort of cyber attack, they're out of business in 6 months. So again, when we hear about Equifax or Target or these large corporations, they've got deep pockets, right? So for them, this is more of a marathon, right? It's not a sprint. So they're, even if you look at the stock price, for example, of Target, I think it went down like 40%, after the breach. But as Target continues to get good PR out there, and they can. I even know my wife, right? She didn't feel comfortable giving her credit card number, so she stayed away there for a while. But because they have the money to withstand that, our memories are short. In 6-8 months, we're going to forget about it, and everyone's going to go back to Target, right? But for the companies on this call, my company as well, I couldn't live with that bad PR. Or again, there's 47 states in the union that have privacy laws on the book that say if that personally identifiable information or that protected health information is exposed, you have to do A, B, and C. And again, it varies state to state, but I think a majority of the people on this call are probably in Maryland, but that's something that you can Google and you can see what you have to do if that information is compromised. Just two other points I wanted to point out. 43% of, so almost half the claims that are reported to the insurance industries are small businesses or folks on this call. And then the average breach cost is $665,000. So that just kind of gives you an idea. Now, again, that's going to be, it's including the big claims and it's including the small claims. But, with that $665,000, that's going to cause financial distress to, most everyone on this phone call. All right, so I just want to run across, again, some of these, I'm going to throw in some of the exclusions and some of the claims that we've seen, but I'm just going to highlight, some of the major insuring agreements or coverages that you need to pay attention to when you're looking at a cyber liability policy. The first one is media liability, and what media liability covers are things like libel, slander, defamation, copyright, trademark infringement. So, if you've got a Facebook or a Twitter account, I mean, everything's going online now, you've got to have the media liability. I know that we've seen, claims where, we had it was a healthcare provider had posted something about another healthcare provider in their town, and that, the healthcare provider that had the stuff posted about them took it as defamation, right? That they were saying something extremely negative about them and ended up suing our client for defamation. Now, they didn't have a real good case, and once that our company, or once they found out that that our client had cyber insurance and they were going to have to go against a multi-billion-dollar company, then they dropped the suit because they didn't feel like the case was good enough. So in that case, insurance not only was there to protect them, it was a deterrent because this company wasn't going to go up against a multi-billion-dollar insurance company unless they had a solid case. But we're just seeing more and more media liability claims. I know in the last statistics I saw were in 2016, but roughly 30% of the claims that got turned in, to the cyber market were from, the media liability. So if you've got a social media presence, you got to make sure you got the media liability. Network security. So this would be the unauthorized access into your system. And, if they're able to get into your system, your client's system, if they've got access to that. It also covers things like transmission of malicious code. So we've seen instances where I could probably say it's 5 accounting firms that we've worked with where fraudulent tax returns are filed. And in 3 of those cases, it was where an individual had logged on from their home network and, on their PC, they had, developed or introduced some malware into the system, and the bad guys were able to get through and start filing tax returns fraudulently. And so how these accounting firms were made aware is that they had the IRS contact them and say, hey, listen, we think something's kind of crazy going on here, and it was found out that in 3 of the 5 cases that somebody was logging on from their home network and had caused this breach. An exclusion that you want to pay attention to when you're looking at this is you got to make sure that the carrier doesn't put an exclusion that you have to update your antivirus or your software to the next version. And this is where Jim and them could comment, but a lot of these MSPs and IT companies, they will wait, a couple of days, or they'll wait, maybe to like a week or 2 weeks to whitelist things, right? And so sometimes, I don't know if you guys are aware, but if your system doesn't populate and tell you that the version, the next version is available, and you have an exclusion on there because you didn't do it the next day, it's a good way for the insurance carrier to get out of a claim. So, make sure that there isn't some sort of version restriction. Another thing is we had, or I'd read about a client in California. It was a large healthcare provider, and they had a breach, and the notification costs were $4.1 million. And the carrier, after they did their due diligence, said, hey, you had checked on the application that you were going to audit your third-party vendor. So imagine, I'm sure everyone on this call uses, Apple or Microsoft, right? And so, if you as a small accounting firm or a small law firm or a small, dentist office, if you have to, audit a third-party vendor like Microsoft and Apple, good luck. But the carrier in that instance ended up, asking for a refund of their money that they paid out in notification costs because that healthcare provider didn't audit their third-party vendors like they said they would on the application. So, two exclusions that you want to be aware of are version restrictions on, updating your antivirus and your firewall, and making sure that you don't have to audit your third-party vendors because it's nearly impossible. Privacy liability. This is the theft or disclosure of PHI or PII. Again, PII is being protected health information, and PHI is being PII being personally identifiable information, and PHI being protected health information. We had an incident where, and you're making sure that you got coverage for, I guess on this one, I'm going to point out two things. Unencrypted laptops. I mean, if you have laptops or mobile devices that are unencrypted and you're applying for cyber insurance, you'll make sure and ask, the carrier, hey, is there an exclusion in there for unencrypted laptops and mobile devices? Because I think most of the people out there probably carry, more in their email in terms of personally identifiable information than you think. I mean, how many people are getting emails where you might get a federal ID number, you might get someone's date of birth, and if you've got a name and a date of birth in a lot of states, that triggers a notification. Another thing on the privacy liability is you got to make sure that you got coverage for a rogue employee. We've seen one instance where, somebody on the way out the door had shut down a medical practice, had gone in and done some, they knew kind of the back ways through the network and had shut them down, and they were down for 5 days. And, they didn't have coverage for, a rogue employee. And, so they were caught. And, we also seen, we had a client that had a client where they had gone on the dark web, and I think it was 10,000 social security numbers that they had sold. So again, if you've, I've never been there, but I've been on webinars where they show you how you can go into the dark web, and you can, for Bitcoin, you can sell people's social security numbers. So making sure under the privacy liability that you don't have some sort of unencrypted laptop or mobile device exclusion, and making sure that you got coverage for a rogue employee are two important things, because between a staff mistake and a rogue employee, 25% of the claims that we see, so roughly a quarter of them, come from those two things. Privacy notification costs. So this is going to be to notify and send out credit monitoring. So, on a large scale breach, you're looking at about $40 per person. And if it's a smaller breach, that number could be, in the low 100s. So you guys, would have to do the math. But if you had to notify, 1,000 people, right, and it's $100 a pop, you're looking at what, $100,000 claim. So if you don't have, a cyber liability policy to help you offset those costs, again, it's going to cause your firm financial distress. Regulatory. So, I mean, we're seeing more and more regulations. I know the EU just had something where if you guys are doing business with any European countries, that they're now really clamping down on the theft or disclosure of PHI or PII. But here, in the States, we've got, HIPAA, we've got GLB, we've got Sarbanes-Oxley. But there's different regulatory bodies that, sit over and say, hey, if there's a theft or disclosure of this information and you guys don't go through step A, B, C, and D, there could be some sort of regulatory fine and penalty. And I think they say that the fine and penalty, I know it starts out, I think maybe at, I don't know, a couple $1,000s, but it goes up to $1.5 million. So, making sure that you got fines and penalties coverage is going to be extremely important if you're in a tightly regulated industry like healthcare or financial. Forensics and legal expense. So this is going to be to investigate, you need money set aside to see, kind of how the bad guys got in or what happened. For example, in Target, when that had happened several years back, they found out that they came in through the HVAC contractor and were able to access, all of Target's, the credit card terminals and stuff like that. So, the privacy laws on the books are going to mandate that you find out how, this breach occurred and what you're going to do to remedy it to make sure that it doesn't happen again. Public relations and crisis management. You're going to need money set aside to hire a PR firm. I don't know if anyone on this call remembers, but I just, it still sticks out in my head, the BP oil spills. We got inundated here. I'm in Columbus, Ohio, but inundated with BP commercials about, coming down to the Gulf and promoting tourism. And the reason why BP was doing that was, one, to get their good name back, and then two, to get people down there to spend money so that they weren't paying fishermen lost wages and stuff like that. So, you know, you better believe if anyone on this call, if you make the local news or the local newspaper, and it gets out there that you had sustained a breach, people might not feel comfortable doing their taxes with you, and they might not, you know, feel comfortable in getting their teeth cleaned by you. And so they might, you know, go to the firm down the street or your competitor. So, you know, you need to bombard them with PR and say, hey, listen, here's what we've done. Here's the practices and procedures that we have in place. Here's the steps we've taken to make sure this doesn't happen again. A PR company told me one time that for, you know, every dollar in bad PR, you need to spend about 10 to get your good name back. So, you know, making sure that you've got this coverage is going to be extremely important if the breach does occur. Cost for damage to data or programs. So what that is if your system gets hacked and then the bad guys you know, corrupt your data, right? And there is cost to reproduce or reduplicate that data. It gets very expensive, and if you're paying somebody, you know, X amount per hour to go in and upload all this information again, the meter goes up pretty quick. So you're going to want to make sure that you have money set aside in your cyber liability policy to pay for the recreation of that data. Two more, and then I'll get to your questions. But the last one, or one of the last ones here, is network failure, income loss, and extra expense. So what this is if your systems go down to a hack and you can't operate your IT system, then the insurance company, after 8 hours, 12 hours a day, whatever it is, they will pay you lost revenue. Okay, so, you know, again, much like Amazon maybe processes, I don't even know what the number is, but let's just say for this call, $1 million a minute, right? You know, if they're down for an hour, I'm sure, you know, after their deductible, which is a time limit, you know, they're going to want to be compensated for that loss. So, you know, again, all of us, you know, if you don't realize how important your technology and your phone system is, try unplugging your computer and unplugging your telephone and see how much work you can get done. I mean, those, you know, I'm just talking myself. You know, I try to cut money maybe on paper and staples and stuff like that. But when it comes to my IT systems and my phone systems, I'll overpay for that, because if those things aren't working, I'm in trouble. And then last but not least, I think I kind of touched upon this, and I don't want to, you know, go over too much, but that cyber extortion. I mean, you know, over the last 18 months, the number of cyber extortion claims that we've seen is through the roof. I mean, I was on a call this morning where, you know, it was a healthcare provider, and you know, their system and even their backups were corrupted, and you know, these people are wanting $30,000 to unencrypt that data. So if you don't have cyber extortion or kidnap and ransom type insurance, you know, it's going to be pretty expensive to you know, try to get your data back. One other last thing, and I know we're at the context page, but you know, just something else that you guys want to pay attention to, and you know, this is, again, it's becoming more and more common, is kind of the cyber crime element. So there's really, you know, two coverages that you want to pay attention to. One of those is the unauthorized electronic funds transfer. So if somebody gets into your bank account and they do some sort of unauthorized electronic funds transfer, I think if you check with your bank, you'll find out that the two answers you get when you say, am I covered for this, will be, you know, I've heard, you know, we've got enough, you know, protections in place to make sure that doesn't happen, which is no. And the other one's, you know, you need a cyber crime policy. So there's laws on the book called the Unauthorized Electronic Funds Transfer Act. I think it's Regulation E, which basically says you as a business customer you don't have the same protections as the personal customer. So you know, making sure that you got the unauthorized electronic funds transfer on your cyber crime is important, as well as cyber deception or social engineering. Again, if you get tricked into sending money, I know we've had an instance where an owner of a practice was down in the Caribbean, and it looked like he had sent an email to his office manager, and again, one digit was off. And so the office manager, you know, gets a lot of emails. She wasn't really paying attention and had transferred $30,000, and that money was gone. We've had instances where, and again, you'll want to talk to your IT provider about this. It's called two-factor, but we've had instances where you know, the hackers have gotten in and then they take over people's emails. So they'll go through the email history and see, oh, okay, you know, this law firm requested this amount of money from this client, and then they'll send them another email requesting more money or something like that. And the client, it's a legitimate email. It's just their email got hacked into, right? So if you don't have two-factor on your email, that could be you know, something that you might want to look at putting in place. But you know, you could get tricked into sending money, and you know, once it's gone, it's gone. I mean, I've been on a case where we had an IT client of ours that got brought in by the FBI because one of the large manufacturing company that they had done the work for the firewall in, they had been tricked into sending 35 million of the $40 million. So I'm not making it up. It really happened. And so they had to go down to the bank, this large multinational, or yeah, it was they were headquartered, I believe, out of Switzerland or Sweden or somewhere like that. But anyways, you know, they had to go down because the bank stopped all communication with them. They wouldn't talk with them. So they had to go down and get out the remaining $5 million so that they could operate, you know, this plant and stuff like that. So, you know, that cybercrime portion is getting worse and worse. So hopefully I kept it to a time limit that was good for everybody. And with that, I'll kind of turn it back over to Lisa and Jim.
Do you have any questions? Let's see.
Lisa, Jim?
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't have any questions right now.
No questions.
And that's fine. If anyone, you know, if you've got any questions or whatever, there's a chat box there. You know, I guess no question's a dumb question, right? So if there's something on your mind about, hey, I was wondering this, or, you know, if we do this, you know, how much does it cost? You know, things like that. You know, I'd be more than happy to answer. And if no one has any questions, you know, we'll kind of leave it at that.
Okay, so if no questions, I want to thank everybody today for attending the webinar. Special thanks to Justin Rymuth with TechRug for presenting this valuable information about cyber insurance. I'll leave you with one last thing. eTrepid is offering, if the company qualifies, to actually cover the cost of this insurance. So if you'd like to learn more about how to qualify, here's how you can contact us. And I know Lisa will be sending out an email, a follow-up email, thanking you for the webinar with some additional information on how to contact us specifically about this cyber insurance. So with that, if there's no other questions, thank you. Thank everyone for your time today, and have a good rest of the day.